too many devs treat their demo like it's a playtest, but the reality is your demo is a launch.
This is a conversation with Tommy, an indie game developer from Australia, co-developer of Gnomes, a tower defense roguelike that was built completely in Rust in a custom engine.
In total, it took about 10 months. The week he posted, we ended up with like 6,000 or 7,000 wish lists. A lot of people have a problem with like a marketing first approach, but I think a lot of those people don't understand what marketing actually is.
I really enjoyed the game. It looks exactly like the kind of game that anyone could make, but it only looks that way because there's a lot of depth, there's a lot of know-how behind it.
Stop trying to think about what other people think is cool and make something that you think is cool. Stick to what you know.
I want to learn how to make games like this. I find it super inspiring. It doesn't look too difficult, but how difficult is it really to make a game like this? Let's dive right in, and I hope you enjoy. I think the most interesting thing that I would like to ask you about is the custom engine. You made Gnomes in Rust in a custom engine? It's not Bevy.
Well, no, it's not Bevy at all. So what happened was I actually finished up another game called Sea of Survivors, and we were sort of just taking a bit of time off, and I met this guy, Patrick, at a game dev meetup here in Brisbane. And I don't know, we sort of just hit it off, and he was a pretty quirky, interesting guy that had similar tastes in games to me. And he said, hey, we can make a game, but the only condition is we have to use my Rust engine. And I went, all right. Okay. If I don't have to do any programming, amazing. If all I have to do is make music and art and help with game design, then that sounds perfect. So yeah, that's how it all happened. Gnomes itself is like 6 really, really long scripts, and then like a few helper scripts and stuff as well. So yeah, it's pretty.
Oh wow!
It's pretty. Yeah, we used the OpenGL and some other things just to sort of make it a bit easier out of the box. But yeah, Patrick is just a mega math brain who he's got like an electrical engineering degree, and he loves the challenge. And for him, it was actually just faster because it's what he's most comfortable with.
So he already had like a custom engine sitting there and waiting to be used, essentially.
Well, Gnomes was kind of like our second swing, actually, because we had another little game we were working on that after a little while we realized like that our scope was just absurd. And we said, hey, what can we just knock out in a few months? And he said, why don't we just try and make like a tower defense and do a little game jam? And I think within probably a week, Gnomes, the first map and like the most basic gameplay was pretty much implemented. Like the whole idea of goblins having random paths and being able to move gnomes around and planting crops for your economy and stuff. We did take a few riffs out of Thronefall as well, which you might have noticed, like the day-night cycle and like do I greed my economy or do I build up my defense? And just that give and take. I thought that was really interesting. Obviously, that's not a completely original idea from Thronefall, but I had been playing some other similar games as well.
Yeah,
Patrick
so it's
really
sort
loved
of
Warcraft 3.
mixing tower defense with economy, right? How quickly did you make the game? I heard you made it quite quickly, but I somehow missed the exact timeline. Was it 2 months or what? What did you say?
Oh, no. Well, we could have probably released the game after 2 months, but it would have been much less content and it would have been a much more shallow game. But it kind of took off when we put it out there, and we went, oh, well, hey, we know that this game's probably going to sell by the time we get there, so we might as well put a little bit more in it and see if we can maximize it. I think it's important to like not decide how big your scope is until you know how much people want it, if that makes sense. So in total, it took about, I think from conception to Steam page live for sale, about 10 months.
10 months. Okay, that's still very fast. I mean, Thronefall took us 2.5 or 3 years, depending on how you count. So 10 months is very fast, especially for using a custom engine and so on. It's pretty good.
Was that including your early access for Thronefall, or are you talking about to 1.0?
Got to early access in like 1.5, 2 years-ish, and then another year of early access.
Yeah, we kind of treated our demo as our early access, And I feel like these days that's something you kind of have to do. Like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, it wasn't the case, but I think the market's changed a bit, and people expect a lot more out of demos and a lot more out of early access games. And more importantly, if your early access game doesn't hit, people still expect you to keep working on it, regardless. You know what I mean? What's your take on that?
On early access, yeah, I mean, people have this expectation. I think early access for me is mostly a way to communicate to players that the game is still actively getting updates. So whenever you put early access tag on your game, it's like saying, hey, we're gonna keep updating this for a while. And also it doesn't maybe have as much content as you would expect from a full release yet. But people still expect like the quality level to be at a decent level. Like you can add more content during early access. You cannot afford to go into early access with like low quality. Like the quality needs to be high, and then you can expand like horizontally the amount of content you have during early access.
And did you guys do a demo for Thronefall as well?
We did a demo, and it was also quite well received and gave us big wishlist boost during a Next Fest. Yeah, there was a good one. Okay. And for Gnomes, you said you noticed before release that people were responding well to it. Was that also the demo?
So before we did the demo, like I had just finished marketing another game, which was Sea of Survivors, and that game had a few moments where I'd post on Reddit and we'd get 1,000 wish lists overnight or whatever, and I thought that was pretty crazy. But with Gnomes, I just knew straight away from putting it in front of people and getting them to play test it that it was going to be something a bit special. I've play tested bad games and I've play tested good games, and you kind of can just tell, if you know what I mean. The other thing was I kind of use Reddit as my main guerrilla marketing platform to like drive people to the Steam page early on, or like get playtesters into our Discord server or whatever we need. And I found it just like 50% easier, or probably even more than that, than I did with Sea of Survivors. We kind of just, maybe it was because I was better at finding the people for the game, like finding the right niches. But it also just seemed like when I'd post on Reddit, we'd get like 100 upvotes every time versus like a 50-50 chance we were going to get downvoted to hell, or it was that it might be a semi-successful post like it was with Sea of Survivors, if that makes sense.
Okay, I did not know about Sea of Survivors. I just opened the Steam page. It has a very cool art style. Is it like a Survivors-like game?
Yeah. So that was pretty early on in the Survivor-like rush. We got the Steam page up, which helped us out a lot. It was a fun game to make. Like I made all the music and I got to do all the art and stuff. And pirates are like one of my favorite themes. Probably up there with Gnomes as well. I think Gnomes are pretty cool. But it was just a couple of friends of mine that I've known for some time, and it was actually our first commercial game together. So we kind of just had to learn on the fly, and I as you can see too, it's still in early access, and it's finished, but it's we've just got to put a few pieces together and put it out there. But this is kind of probably why I've got the opinion about early access that I do. Is like, if your game doesn't really turn into a mega hit, you still got to finish it, or else you look like you've just taken the money and run.
Yep, that's the problem with early access that I've also seen a couple of times. And for Sea of Survivors, you did decently well, right? It's sitting at like 400 reviews or so. That's pretty decent. Yeah. But there are like games that go into early access with like a huge list of things and like promises that they're gonna add, and then they get like 20 reviews or something, and it's like, that really sucks.
Well, that was one of the first things we said was like, we're not going to promise anything. We're going to promise what we've already made. So, the main thing with Sea of Survivors though is I feel like it would have sold better if we just did a 1.0 launch and then updated it after the fact. And the reason is because it would have had a chance in new and trending on Steam, which in my opinion is like the make or break for a game. My goal with every game that I'm making is when I put it out there, I want to get in on day one, get into new and trending on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
And if my game doesn't make it after that, then I probably made the wrong game, or I've managed to skull drag to the right wishlist count that Chris D tells us to. But for it to really like get seen by everyone and have a real chance, I think that's like a minimum floor of entry.
Yeah, I wonder if the new and trending tab on Steam is still the same as it used to. I kind of noticed that it's further and further down on the Steam page every time I check. Like, it used to be very, very far up. Like, it used to be one of the first gadgets, and now it's like you have to scroll for a while to even get to new and trending. But I guess it's still a way to see how the algorithm likes your game, right? If you're new and trending, that's probably still a good sign overall. Yeah.
From what I understand, it's about 8,000 US in sales that it's taken. Well, that's what it took us to trigger it for Gnomes. And the thing is, the better you perform, the longer you stay there as well. But what you said, not only is it probably gone down a little bit further, but you're seeing a lot more games cycle through there, because I think every man and his dog's figured out, he's got to hit these numbers and he's got to make his Steam capsule look like this, and that then he'll get there. But the reality is the gameplay is king. If your gameplay doesn't stand out, then you can get a new and trending, but you're going to spend half a day there and your game might sell a bit, but it's never going to get the traction that just a game that a content creator will pick up, or people are going to recommend to their friends.
Gameplay is king. Yeah, we'll talk about that a bit more later. That's interesting. One more question. The Sea of Thieves, I see, is published and developed by Naya Games. That's a different studio, right?
Sea of Survivors. I wish I made
Sea of Survivors.
Thieves,
exactly.
But it's funny you say that. We actually have had people say, "Oh, that's too similar to the title Sea of Thieves," but
it's so similar that I got them mixed up. Damn it, Sea of Survivors.
Yeah, well, I think that's some of the learnings that I also had with that game was, we could have probably had a little bit more originality in the title, amongst other things, especially seeing other survival likes come out, and they've kind of, rather than tried to, we either should have made Pirate Survivors or made something completely original rather than tried to do something in between. Sorry, the question was.
It's a different team.
Yes. So the two guys I was working with, one of them is like my oldest friend, and he had just sold his company. And so he wasn't really in a hurry to make any money and wasn't really in a hurry to finish the game. And one of the other guys is still working 3 days a week in a pretty well-paying job. So me, on the other hand, I was the only one that was a full-time developer. I was doing like commissions for music and stuff in between. And I just had to make another game. And luckily I met Patrick when I did. And he was in a similar position. He had a job that he hated and said, "Oh, I just need someone who can handle everything I don't want to do, which happens to be everything that I do." So It was just a perfect match, wasn't it?
And Patrick did also work on Sea of Survivors.
No, he did not.
Okay.
He only worked on Gnomes with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you basically switched teams after Sea of Survivors / are still in both teams a little bit.
Look, I could afford to spend a day or two a week on Sea of Survivors, and now it's basically done, and we're just waiting on a few other little final pieces to be done, and we can probably move on. But right now, as we speak, I'm actually trying my luck solo for the first time.
Okay.
And
third game.
not only, yeah. So Gnomes is almost done. I think Patrick's having a little bit of a holiday, and we're going to get back together and do another content update. But my intention at the moment is to become like a triple threat. I want to be able to do all the art and all the music, and then do all of the programming and game engine stuff myself as well. So I've transitioned to Godot, and I'm kind of just doing a bit of a experiment in there at the moment, even trying 3D. which brings me to a question that I would like to ask you, as someone who's made 2D and 3D games. Do you, in some ways, find 3D easier?
Yes, I think 3D is actually easier, not necessarily to program, but it's easier to sell and to market, I think, quite significantly. Because I think it's a lot more difficult as a 2D artist to make an art style that stands out as compared to a 3D art style that stands out and is appealing and that you want to dive into. And I think one of the main reasons for that is maybe the immersion factor. If you see something that's 3D, it's a bit easier to, as a player or as a customer, to immediately get immersed into it.
Yeah.
You can still achieve that with 2D, I think. It's possible, but I think it's more difficult with 2D.
Oh, for sure. Trying to get something to look like what it is with 16 by 16 pixels is a real challenge in itself. But when you pull it off, it definitely is satisfying. What you said before, though, about programming, I've actually found it easier. I've done a few experiments in 2D and a few experiments in 3D, and I feel like for someone who's not the strongest programmer, 3D kind of feels like out of the box things just work a lot better. I feel like creating something that's more modular. Like what I do is I'll watch a tutorial about each component that I'm trying to build and put them together. Whereas 2D, you kind of need to have a full picture of what you're trying to make. And it's a lot more like UI heavy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You also, if you do 2D, you sometimes run into wonky situations because your 2D art is trying to emulate a 3D space, right? So then you have like a isometric sprite or something,
Right.
and then that isometric sprite needs to spawn an arrow because it's like an archer that shoots something, and then all of a sudden you're kind of doing 3D but in 2D, and then things start getting weird quite quickly. And in 3D, it's just I just spawn it here, it flies in an arch, whatever.
That's exactly the type of thing I'm talking about. Like with Gnomes, we still have problems with, the different Y sorting of all the different assets. Like it's just even if you look closely in the trailer, you'll see a few moments where like something will run over the top of something that probably shouldn't have. But luckily, because of the art style we've chosen and that it's a pretty low fidelity game, we kind of get a bit of forgiveness.
Oh, for sure. And also, I think it didn't feel like there's a lot of overlap, right? There, like, for example, trees are trees contained entirely in their own cell?
Look, initially I tried to do that, but eventually I kind of just gave a few too many little artistic flourishes and kind of gave it all away. So sometimes it does overlap a little bit, and sometimes there is like a bit of a Y sorting error or something like that. But
I see.
I definitely think it was worth it, because once we created more than one map, you can only draw so many 16 by 16 style trees, right? And also especially with the goblins too, because there's like, I don't know, there must be like 60 goblins or something in the game now. So trying to draw all these different types of goblins in that tiny space was that was a pretty big challenge. So some of them take up a bit more room than that because they might have accessories or something going on, right?
I see, that makes sense. So Sea of Survivors was obviously not the custom Bevy engine, the custom Rust engine then. It was,
we used Unity for Sea of Survivors. And I think, the big thing about Unity is if you're making games for the first time, there's a lot of resources to learn how to use Unity. But if I was going to tell someone who I just met what engine to use, I'd tell them to use Godot, I think.
Yeah, I think Godot is clearly becoming a stronger and stronger contender, and I think I would agree. I would probably recommend Godot or Unity to people who want to get into indie games. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is not having to worry about paying a license. For most people, that'll never be a problem, but I've kind of become a bit of like a open source purist recently, and I don't know, it just feels nice not having to worry about one day getting a bill from Unity or something like that. I had to pay an Fmod bill recently, and it kind of stung a little bit. It's making me think, should I do that again or not? But
Mhm.
now we've got the license, I guess. So that's the main thing. I guess just speaking about Unity, you've made games with teams of people, and you've also made games on your own. Have you always used Unity?
I've used Game Maker for a very long time. I learned how to make games in Game Maker. And also I made Will You Snail, one of my like quote unquote big Steam releases that I've worked on for like 3-4 years is also Game Maker.
Yeah, okay.
And
That was a
Islanders,
solo project?
and that was a solo project. Exactly. And then at university, I got into using Unity because everybody was using Unity. And we made Islanders in Unity, and we also made Thronefall in Unity. And now I'm very used to the Unity workflow and to the Unity ecosystem and so on. So now I'm a little bit stuck with Unity. I've dabbled with Godot, and I like it a lot. I don't feel like it's entirely ready. Like I'm missing a couple of things that I have in Unity, but at the same time, I'm also really annoyed by a lot of Unity things. It's like I hope I
Yeah,
can
right.
switch. I hope I can switch to Godot at some point. I really hope so.
I guess that's why I'm kind of lucky that I've never really had to get my hands too dirty in a game engine, because I can understand the grand concepts, and learning them in Godot and having like the node based workflow was just, I think it was a good step by step process for me. I
Mm.
can see too how Godot would work really well as a team, whereas Unity, working with teams, you kind of had to like understand everyone else's spaghetti to know how everything's working. Like, there was like a lot of custom built tools and stuff in Sea of Survivors that I just think in Godot I probably wouldn't need. But from your experience working alone and with a team, do you have like any takeaways from there being a difference? Like for me, the big thing is I find solo, I can do things a lot faster, but I'm a lot more limited to a narrow scope, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, you are more limited to a narrow scope, and that's not because you are much faster solo. It's because you're slower solo, right? You underestimate just how much work the other people in the team put in. If you go from like a team project to a solo project, then I think you'll be surprised at how slowly some things are moving because you need to do everything yourself, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
in a normal like in a 2-man project, half of the work just happens automatically. And when you do it solo, it takes like twice as long at least. But as you're not as skilled at some of these tasks as like maybe your teammate would be, they're gonna take you even longer. So it's not like twice as long, it's like 2.2 times as long or something like that. Right.
Gotcha. I
So
suppose.
what you said makes sense. You just have to scope accordingly. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that totally makes sense. Like I'm kind of dealing with pathing algorithms and all that kind of business at the moment. That's Patrick's specialty. And I've kind of, in the last few days, I've grown some grey hairs. So I definitely think, yeah, that was probably something I needed to hear. And maybe some of the scope that I've considered, yeah, there's definitely things that I just considered easy mode stuff because I've never really had to touch it. But now that I'm in with my hands dirty, it's something that I've definitely got to go back to the drawing board on a few things, right?
I guess there are a lot of shortcuts you can take, right? It's also, I think a lot of game dev is like figuring out how to work smarter, not harder, right?
Yeah.
So using systems other people build maybe for some things and so on. Like you don't have to build your own custom pathing system. You don't have to build your own engine. Just use stuff from the shelf.
Yeah, I suppose where the optimal situation when you're in a team is when you've got two people that are doing very different things, or more, or a bigger team, but everyone's got their own lane. I think you said one time in one of your videos, like everyone needs to be the captain of their own section of the game, and they're the ones that kind of can pull rank. But yeah, being the captain of everything, you kind of the remote, so random access memory in my brain's just kind of, I
Yeah,
need another stick, right?
sure. But it's also kind of interesting the fact that I think making games solo and making games in a team, you can make very different kinds of games when you're working solo. Because if you work in a team, and especially the bigger the team gets, the more washed out all of the ideas become. And if you work solo, then that doesn't have to be the case. Then you can go all in on a very specific and also like very weird vision, and nobody is gonna be like, no, that's weird. We're not gonna do that.
That would be the biggest benefit, wouldn't it? Because you don't have to justify your vision to anyone. You don't have to like that. Being in a team, it feels like constant negotiation between visions, doesn't it? You know, that walking that tightrope of trying to do what's best for the game, but also letting everyone feel like they're heard and they've got their input at the same time, right?
Yeah, and I think that honestly, that probably most of the time makes for better design decisions if there's like a little bit of argument and pushback. But sometimes the weird, unoptimized, not fully thought through ideas are the ones that feel really special to people. So there's value in that as well.
Well, I hope that's going to be the case for this next little experiment that I'm working on.
What are you working on? Can you share anything about that?
Look, maybe we won't put this part in the video, we'll see. But I had a little idea, which was I'm working on like an FPS PSX style game. Like I think there's a lot of art assets available. Like FPS is a very well documented genre, and you know, first thing I've done is I've just created a really solid FPS controller and you know, some ragdoll physics and that kind of stuff, and you know, that from there I can kind of just take it where I want to go. Yeah, so without giving too much away, just thinking maybe a touch of horror, touch of you know, dark humor sort of thing. I haven't really got anything I'm ready to share just yet, but yeah, watch this space. We'll see. We'll see if I can get this pathing to work, and we'll go from there. Hey?
There's some questions that I'm just asking all of the people who are on the podcast recently, and one of them would be, how do you see the role of luck in making successful indie games? How much of a role does luck play? What's your estimate?
I think everything's a bet, isn't it? You know, like but you can make a better bet than some bets are better than other bets, if that makes sense. Like I always am thinking about three things when I'm writing down my ideas log that's like 100 pages long. I firstly think like, is this something that I even want to make? And if the answer is no, then I suppose it probably doesn't get too much more input from me. And then there's obviously the scope of the idea, which is like, if the idea is something I can make, then, you know, obviously it's got more value and it's a better bet. But the most important thing I think is like, will people care about the idea? So like the appeal side of it. So it's kind of like the Triforce, you know, like if you can say yes to all three of those things, you've probably got a pretty decent bet. I mean, a game that doesn't get finished is a bad bet, and a game that no one's going to care about is a bad bet, and a game I don't want to make is a bad bet. So regarding luck being a factor, yes, there's going to be luck whether Splattercat or Northern Lion opens your email, you know, whether you get them on the right day, but you can also email them twice. And I suppose, you know, whether you're going to have a viral post that gets you 1,000 wish lists is another bit of luck, but you're only going to know if you make the post, right? My motto has always been, if you're not sure, just send the email. I mean, that's kind of what I did with you. I think it might have been the second time I emailed you actually, and here we are. So maybe it was just the lucky day where I emailed you, and it was just the right time of day where you're checking your emails, and it was the top one on the list. You never know. There is a component to luck, but you have to make more bets if you want to get lucky, if that makes sense.
You acknowledge that there's luck, but you think you can significantly control your odds by choosing which bets you make.
Yeah, make the right game, and the other thing is if you didn't make the right bet, don't double down on that bet. Make a different bet and go and make another game. You know, don't spend 2 years working on a game that no one wants.
I see. What do you like? What do you mostly do for Gnomes? You said music and game design, right?
So I did all the art, I did all the music and sound and stuff. So where me and Patrick meet in the middle is the game design side of things. So I'm a much more like user experience focused game designer, and I care about you know, making things really accessible, and I take tutorials, so I want to make everything as organic feeling as possible. So if they're doing the right thing, you know, it should feel great to do the right thing. Whereas Patrick, on the other hand, has a lot of crazy ideas, but a lot of the time, they're probably a little bit too weird for a commercial game. So we kind of like drag each other into a good spot where, we have some really deep gameplay, but we haven't necessarily got the complexity that comes with it, if that makes sense.
And how does content creation look like in a custom engine? Do you have like spreadsheets, or how would you, for example, add a new enemy or a new gnome to your game?
It's really easy, actually. Basically, I just drop a PNG sprite sheet in, and I know how the sprite sheet's going to be structured. Like, we've got the up direction, the down direction, the left direction, right direction, or whatever. And then if I'm putting a new enemy in, it's just one big script that contains all the enemies. Like I said, Gnomes is like 6 scripts. So I can go in and just add a new enemy entity, and then just basically, it's almost like you export variables that you can control in Unity or whatever, only it's just in a script. And I will, decide how many frames it is, and, how fast it can run and how much HP it's got or whatever. So that sort of stuff's real easy, and I can just do it myself. Whereas there's some more technical things like the pathing scripts. I wouldn't even want to look at those, because that's like Patrick's. We call it the deep scrolls. I'm not allowed to go near the deep scrolls. You know what I mean?
I see. So everything in 6 scripts. Those are long scripts, then probably.
Oh, very, very, yeah.
Yeah.
But because Rust is just so efficient, it wasn't really a problem with performance or anything like that. We did have a few headaches with like compatibility and stuff, and bless Patrick for putting in the work to try and get it working on every system he can. We had to change from like OpenGL to something else at some point. It's a little bit above my head, but yeah, Patrick's happy to do it. So making visual shaders and that kind of thing. So it was really fun when he got to make the CRT filters and all that retro stuff. So yeah, it definitely wasn't something that he didn't want to do. Let's put it that way.
Like the entire game's database is basically hard coded into the script, is what you're saying. So
yeah,
part of the design process for you was basically to, for example, create a new sprite sheet for new content, and then to just add like a new database entry into the script, essentially.
Yeah. Then there was a couple of exceptions to that structure. Like the Gnomes were a bit more complicated because they've got some pretty complicated behaviors. As far as a game of our scale goes, pretty complicated behaviors. Some of the like relics and buildings and things in the game got a bit more complicated. So those are things that Patrick handles. But generally speaking, unless they were, something very, very unique, they pretty much were within a handful of scripts. Obviously, as the game got bigger, we started to eat our own tail a little bit. And one of the big headaches we had was that we didn't have a font system in the game. So our font was just a PNG that was just like, the English alphabet and a few icons that we used. And then when we had to do Chinese and Korean and Japanese, we found it they're actually like 6,000 potential characters. And so luckily Patrick actually automated something that like all I had to do was find the fonts and everything like that. But you'll see that there's like 6,000 PNGs for some of those languages in the game files, which is pretty crazy. So, but he ended up playing a bit of Factorio with the code and getting it all to sort of work a bit more efficiently.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, all the hard-coded text in the game, basically we had to export that all out into JSONs and stuff and get it translated manually. But that took that. We did that after launch, so we launched in English only. And it, we weren't ever really planning on even bothering with translations outside of English. But we just got so many people asking for it that it was just easier to do it in the end. We got a bit of help from Gamersky as well for the like Asian regional languages, and they helped us with like a second launch. So we basically did like a big content update and then 15 languages or something. And we got a daily deal at the same time. And we ended up selling as many copies, if not more, over those couple of days when we did the daily deal as we did on our launch day. So that's something that's pretty unheard of. And, we got a lower price because it was discounted and there was regional pricing and stuff. But that was pretty cool to like wake up one morning and it's like having launch day all over again.
Yeah, I guess let's talk about the game a little bit. I had quite a blast playing it. I thought it was quite awesome. What did the design process look like exactly, or what were your design goals with the game?
I think it's really important to have a theme that matches your mechanics. I think that there's like as in Velatro terms, there's like a X multiplier if you get that right. So the first idea we had was, what if it was just a tower defense, but the gimmick is you can move your towers around. And then Patrick's had the idea of, what if the map expanded every turn and the pathing, instead of just being generic, tower defense paths like in balloons, we make a pathing algorithm and, we let them decide what they're going to run over and what they're going to avoid and all that kind of thing. And I did like an art mock-up in one afternoon and I came up with the idea of making it Gnomes and it just really clicked. So yeah, we knew pretty quickly what the game was. The things that kind of came a bit later was like the progression. We decided we wanted to try and be purists and make it roguelike-y, where you just unlock maps and new guilds rather than like only getting certain items as you progress. Which, I mean, we'll never know whether that was the right decision to make, but it saved us a bit of work, and it also we quite like the gameplay, how it is. It's a game that we like to play.
I think we need to do a little bit of explaining for the people who have not played it. So the general structure of the game is it's essentially a roguelike, right? So you play a run on a specific map, and then when you lose, you just start a new run. But there's some meta progression, so you can unlock, I think you called it guilds?
Yeah, so we created a bunch of guilds, which are just your starting set, essentially. So you start with a certain gnome, and you need some kind of housing so you can house your gnomes. And we usually give them a relic or like some kind of utility item as well, and usually like an eco item. As you get later in the game, you start to get some weird combinations and stuff. But the actual run itself, essentially, you plant crops to get money, kind of like in Thronefall, how you build houses and, you've got to invest in your economy or whatever, or you buy gnomes to defend your garden and your garden shed. The thing that happens throughout the game is as you earn money, you can either just buy more of the same thing, or you can go into the shop and buy relics and buy, different crops or different types of gnomes or whatever it is. And that's sort of how your build starts to take shape. Think like Brotato is probably where we kind of yoinked the shop structure from. I thought it was really, Brotato did the shop really well, and I liked being able to re-roll and hold items, and I like the mix of having both active items that you can use as weapons, but also having relics that are passives that change the way the game works. So yeah, as you progress throughout the run, you become more powerful, and so do the enemies. And if you make it to the last day, you unlock the new map. And if you manage to survive the last day, you can keep playing forever until the game eventually just gets uncontrollably powerful and steamrolls you. Or your computer dies, which I think is how you finish the game.
Nice. Yeah, so it's interesting because you went exactly one of the routes that we thought about for Thronefall. I can remember for Thronefall at some point we were wondering, should we go like into a more roguelike-y direction with like randomly generated levels and random upgrades and so on? And we decided to go the other way. We were like, let's make it so that there are reproducible build orders that you can refine over time, right? So it's the exact same every time, and then you can learn from your mistakes and correct them the next time you try the level. But I have to say that this take on the formula also works really well. Like all of the randomness and so on, it's very enjoyable game loop. It's really satisfying. You have
thanks, Janice.
Yeah, you're welcome. But you also adopted one of the problems we also have for Thronefall, which is that the economy decides almost all of the balancing, which is, I think,
Yeah.
that was such an annoyance for Thronefall, where it's like, right, if you have like twice the economy, the level is gonna be freaking easy. If you have like half the economy, then it's gonna feel impossible, and you're gonna be like, how the hell am I supposed to beat this? So if you have economy in these types of games, it very, very quickly becomes almost only about the economy, right?
Right. I guess it's like how weak can I keep my defense until I really need to start investing in my defenses,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, like I found a similar thing with Thronefall. If you once you sort of get a real feel for the game, you can kind of not even build any defensive units for the first few nights, and you've got a good start. And yeah, so it's I suppose while we didn't directly inspire ourselves from Thronefall, there was like we definitely liked the idea of the greed or defense gameplay, but I mean, yeah, like we said, the downside is always going to be that it becomes economy wins. In saying that, though, in some of the later maps, we've made it so challenging that you have to spend money early on your defenses, or else you're in big trouble. And we kind of give them a little bit of relief in the middle of rounds. And also the other thing is, if you want to be a completionist, some guilds are going to have a very hard time on different map types. Like, for example, there's some gnomes that only can attack one square in front of them, and then there's explosive enemies that will blow them up and destroy them. So you've got to think of some other creative way to get around the map, and usually that's a bit more expensive. Whereas if you pick the right guild, you can kind of just steamroll any map. And we usually give them that guild when they unlock that map as well, if that makes sense.
I see.
Yeah. Just to stop people from like getting stuck. I don't really think people mind too much. As someone who's created a survivor, like I've learnt pretty quickly that most people, whether they realize it or not, have a power fantasy and they want to feel super, super strong once they've figured the game out. And, whether that's what everyone is, I don't know, but usually by that point, they've got their money's worth out of the game and they're pretty happy and they've already left you a positive review, right?
I mean, it took me a little bit to figure out how the gameplay works and so on the first map, but on the second map, I felt like I absolutely destroyed it. Like, I still haven't completed the run. I think I'm getting like 500 coins per day now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which guild did you use?
The one you gave me for the second map is like this, I don't know, the swamp people, they can build farm on like swamp or something.
Yeah, right. It was my favorite map and probably my favorite song too. Like if I go back to play, I'll probably play the swamp map too, actually.
Yeah, it's quite fun. Yeah, it's quite a varied map, and there's so much space for you to build up your economy, because in the beginning I thought, okay, the way you're gonna limit my economy is with fertile ground, right? There's only so much fertile ground, so that's the way you stop the economy from going absolutely exponential. But on the swamp map, where you can build economy almost anywhere, if you can build on the swamp tiles, it just led to the exponential curve is not slowing down yet, because I haven't run out of swamp tiles yet.
Yeah, I don't think you will either. Yeah, I suppose we tried to create different challenges there. Like you can't place gnomes on the swamp, so you kind of sometimes end up with gaps. And we also introduced flying enemies as well. But yeah, look, if you've got like the experience playing tower defense and roguelike type of games, gnomes can be a pretty trivial game, I guess. I mean, there will be combinations that'll be hard, like we were saying before. But that's. I don't really see that as the worst thing. Some people, we get negative reviews all the time saying the game's way too hard. So, you can't please everybody, right?
That's exactly the problem with the economy, because that's the problem we have for Thronefall as well. Is some people say it's way too hard, some people say it's way too easy, and that's due to the snowbally economy. Because if you don't have enough economy, it's too hard. If you have too much economy, it's way too easy. It's impossible to solve for that. But I guess you're right. What it leads to is it definitely feeds into the power fantasy if you get on the correct side of the curve and you stomp everything. It's not like I'm having a bad time or something. Like, it's just, it feels nice to be that powerful. I'm not complaining.
The other thing too is with a random shop too, you might just get an item that completely breaks your run and makes you unstoppable. And, other times you get nothing. And that's another common complaint that we get too, that there's too much RNG. And, it doesn't really bother me too much. Like, people love Vampire Survivors, and that's all RNG, isn't it? So, I guess there is definitely an element of strategy to it. I suppose, like, when to be aggressive and when to be defensive. But these are games. We're not creating hardships for people, are we? We're here to let people relax and have fun, as long as it feels good while you're doing it.
I also think you can work around the randomness in quite nice ways in your game, because you also have like a banish system, you have a reroll system, so you can reroll the shop quite cheaply for the most part. So I think you can. I didn't feel like the randomness was a huge problem so far.
Sure. And as the game's gotten bigger too, the amount of items in the game has changed the shop balance and stuff like that. So it's just a constant song and dance for us to stay on top of everything. And I think typically speaking, you're better off making especially the early part of your game, you're probably better off making it a tiny little bit easier than it needs to be. And, as Patrick and I are probably the two biggest players of Gnomes ever, because, we were addicted to the game as we were making it, which is probably one of the most cool feelings you can ever have, right? Is making the thing that that you're hooked on, right?
Yeah, you're creating content for yourself at that point.
Exactly right, and that's when I think like when you're motivated to make the game, like I was saying before, you're making something that you love. And I guess that's what also made it easy to be in a team together, was that most of the ideas we had pretty similar taste on, and like we've got the same dark sense of humor, and we both love medieval fantasy, but at the same time we both have the same dark sense of humor and love dark fantasy stuff. But we also have like a bit of like a retro bug in us as well. So it was just a cool combination of our likes and dislikes put together, right?
What I find fascinating about Gnomes is that it looks and feels surprisingly impressive. Like the gameplay positively surprised me compared to the looks of the game. Because when I saw like the screenshots, I expected like a somewhat basic, normal tower defense like game. And then when I played it, I was very surprised by how deep it is and how much content there is. And I think this is also something you said earlier, is that your way of thinking about it at least is very gameplay focused, right? You're like
so the user experience, putting user experience first, I kind of think is probably the way to put it, because it doesn't matter if you've got the coolest mechanics. If people don't understand it, or like it doesn't feel good to do it, then it's kind of lost, isn't it? I'm someone who doesn't like tutorials. Like, if a tutorial takes 5 minutes, I probably have already bounced off your demo. Sorry about that. But I tried to make sure that the tutorial was something that was only the bare minimum, and Patrick did a good job at implementing it. But the rest of it you learn on the fly, and you might notice, like, when you hover over something, you can click on it, like there's plenty of juice to it. Like a gnome bounces up, down, and gives a little bark, or when you enter the shop or whatever, and you can press a button or can't press a button. We try to make it pretty obvious. UI is something that I've always like struggled with and hated doing, but I'm pretty proud of what we actually came up with in the end. Especially, we try to make it the type of game you can play with one hand, just with your mouse or whatever. And that's, I guess, because we didn't want to do controller support or anything like that. It's just a big haul to try and do all those extra little tasks, and they just add months and months to your game time, right? Yeah, so we try to make everything playable with one button basically, and just make it super, super obvious. But the gameplay feel, like, Juice was always front and center. Like, keep the mechanics simple, keep the art and everything simple, but leverage Juice as hard as we can. Sound effects, I think, are like a huge thing. It's actually, like I was saying earlier, it's how I got my start in games, and I think it's one of the things that so many developers really undervalue. They don't put enough time or even consider what sound effects can do for their game, just whether it be vibes or whether it be, really tangible feeling sounds. So everything that you're doing feels like the rubble pack on Nintendo 64, right? That's the idea of what you should be doing with your sounds.
That's also a user experience thing. Is the enemies are freaking fast, man. They like the nights go by very quickly. Like in Thronefall, you play a night is like a couple of minutes sometimes, and in Gnomes is like seconds. If you blink, you might miss it.
Yeah, right. Especially if you press the fast forward button as well. But I think Gnomes is a lot more sweaty in that sense. The other thing about Thronefall, though, is that Thronefall's got a very important active component. Like, you kind of did something similar to what I was trying to do, only you did it with a controller, I guess, by making the character the controller. You do everything by putting your character close enough to whatever you're interacting with. And there's the auto attack, and then you've got the active attack, which is like, a little touch of mastery that you can add to it. But I think it's fine that Thronefall has long nights, and some nights go for quite some time because you're directly affecting the result. Whereas Gnomes is the exact opposite. You're just basically watching what you've done unfold, chewing on your fingernails, hoping that hoping that you survive, and you're sort of just clenching your teeth and hoping not to hear that game over sound. And I think that's like, equally as tense. You're putting a lot more thought into the positioning of everything in Gnomes and creating the perfect path and watching it unfold. So I think it's tense not being able to control it because that detail. I don't think the game needed an active component is kind of what I'm saying there, because there was, Does that make sense?
It did not need an active component. I guess what I was saying was more like, I understand why you made that decision. It's more like, I very much respect it, because I think a lot of developers would not have made the correct call there to make it that freaking quickly. And I thought it was on double speed, and turns out I wasn't even on double speed, and it was already that fast. I think what you see in a lot of tower defense games is that even if there's no active component, they let the action play out much slower. I was very surprised by like the default speed of action in your game, and I like it.
But when the round ends and when the round ends, or like you lose HP or whatever, we wanted it to really like slap you in the face too, so you know that like you've made a mistake. Oh no, you're watching your hearts go down, and you're watching your shed get beaten up, and or your crops get trampled. Like, there's a lot of sort of juicy moments. There's a few things that we wish we could have done that were just like technical limitations of the game engine that we had. Like, we can't. People ask us to make the game zoom in and out. It's like, we just can't do that. We're locked at this resolution, so we can let you pan, but I suppose going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's like we're always looking for the most bang for buck thing we can do. And, with Gnomes, using that engine that Patrick created was definitely one of the most bang for buck things we could have done. But like what you've done with Thronefall's really the art style and locking the lighting in one direction to make. Like, I've seen your videos how you'll rotate the light over here and it just doesn't quite look right, but it's made that simple art style just really pop. Similar thing with Gnomes, like the 16 by 16 grid. While it on paper doesn't sound that exciting, it actually inspired like most of our mechanics and created the limitations, inspired so much creativity, and it basically made the game design itself, if that makes sense.
Interesting. You mean the limitation of having everything on a grid, and that was something that there was a limitation of the engine specifically, or was that a design choice you made?
A bit of both. Like, for us to do something, it was easier for me to create like tiles that were that size, and everything just sort of looked better that way. And Patrick, it's like significantly less math to do if you're only dealing with little grid-based units rather than having something you can freely place or whatever. So everything, to put it simply, everything basically has like it's got a tile type, and it's got like an entity type that can go on top of it. So there's nothing that ever takes up more than 2 squares or anything like that that makes the building system more complicated. And yeah, just I suppose when it came to like the pathing algorithm and everything, it made it a lot easier for us and just faster to produce, right?
And when you say the engine was a lot of bang for your buck, what do you mean with that exactly? Don't you think you could have made the same thing in maybe Unity or Godot?
Well, yes, we probably could have. Going back to what I was saying before about when I met Patrick is he actually didn't know how to use a game engine. He's been making games from scratch forever. And this is kind of like the latest iteration of his like Frankenstein machine that he's made. And I basically said, I'm not that great at programming. And he said, hey, I'm really good at programming, but I don't want to use a game engine. And I said, sweet, well, I'll do everything else. And, if he could kind of have like a lone wolf bonus, he didn't need to have someone looking over his shoulder, checking his code or anything like that. I just trusted that he was doing it right. And, as we both had our different ideas, we'd come together and the cool stuff would float to the top, and that's what we'd make.
I'm very jumpy. Like there are a couple of things I wanted to ask about, but I keep forgetting.
Sorry. Yeah, I know, man. It's pretty late in the day for me too. So I'm not at 100%. What I would probably say that I'm going to be most useful for, like the people that are tuning in, is maybe giving them some like really practical marketing advice for like small time indies, like especially because the whole thing with us was we built this game with basically no budget. Like our total marketing budget, including capsule art, was probably, like I think it was like $1,000 Australian, which is like 700 American or something like that. Like don't know how many euros that is, like 650 euros or something. But yeah, like what I think is most important is making the right game, and making the right game to me is choosing like a very specific experience that you want to give and making it narrow but very, very deep rather than trying to do everything. The more you try to do, the less well you do it. So for us, Gnomes was about, trying to build a garden and have a bunch of cute little garden gnomes or whatever. And obviously Thronefall's a game about managing your little kingdom. What most people want out of a game is not, they didn't want like a whole surf management system, or, they didn't want a whole water, they didn't want to have to water their plants and everything like that in Gnomes, but they wanted to have like a deep tactical experience it's unforgiving, but at the same time, it's rewarding because it is unforgiving.
One thing I found interesting is you said you did a lot of guerrilla marketing on Reddit. Maybe you can talk about that, because I think a lot of game devs nowadays are very scared of Reddit. It's like the angry place where the mods will ban you for just being there.
Oh yeah, but who cares if they're going to ban you? I mean, it's just one subreddit, right? I think, like, if you're not sure, just make the post anyway. But also, it's important to like look at the subreddit and kind of pick up on what's the vibe here, and when people do promote their games on the subreddit, what are they doing? Like, how are they framing their post, and what kind of content are they posting as well? Are they posting a certain type of game in this subreddit? I find the more common, so the more general subreddits like indie games or that kind of thing, they don't ever perform as well as a really niche subreddit that's specific for your game. Funny enough, the one that did the best for us was roguelites, despite our game not really being a roguelite. But every time I'd post there, we get awesome responses, and yeah, I guess the meaning of that word is kind of just lost. If you're a fan of roguelikes, you're probably a fan of roguelites. It doesn't really matter.
I didn't even know there was a difference for a long time. Yeah, I only learned that a while ago.
Well, the correct term I've been told is actually run-based, because we're not pure roguelikes, right? Anyway, let's not get into that discussion, because we'll
I think people know what we mean. If roguelike, I think nowadays just basically means run-based, right? I think that's how most people understand the term.
The thing that the single biggest moment for us marketing wise was when a fellow called Splattercat played our game actually. So you've probably heard of him since you've been on YouTube since Jesus was playing for Jerusalem. But it's been I think 6 months since Splattercat posted a video of Gnomes on his channel, and we're still getting traffic from that video, which is crazy. Like, we still have people jumping into our Discord saying, "Oh, hey, I found you on Splattercat's channel," and this happens like pretty frequently. But the week he posted, we ended up with like 6,000 or 7,000 wish lists, and at that point, we're basically just like, "Oh, we can finally relax," because we know, we've got enough wish lists now that we can not have to stress whether the game's going to be picked up by the algorithm on Steam, and we can just make the game. But for me, the biggest thing was just like get it in front of as many different content creators as possible. But there's 2 caveats to that. You need to do it as close together as possible. But also, I think, like, just before you release your demo as well. So if you're giving out like 1,000 keys to content creators and say 50 of them make videos, and then 2 days later, or even later the same day or whatever, you put your demo out, it's just like how you get the most out of the most out of that marketing activity, if that makes sense. So I think everything you should be doing, everything you're doing should be with the intention of converting people that care about your game into something tangible, which is wishlisters, right? I know it just seems like it's so over talked about now, but the reality is, like, I would probably never post something about my game until I have a Steam page up where I can convert people into wishlisters. Because imagine like finding out you've got a viral game and having a huge post or having a video go really well, and
you don't have a Steam page,
missing out on all the juice from that, right? Yeah.
So for Reddit, do you think it's just important to basically it's important to just spend time on Reddit so that you understand the space maybe a little bit, or you understand what works?
I definitely think so.
Maybe you observe what other devs are doing, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll do if I've never posted in a sub before is I will like sort by top and see what posts do the best, and I will kind of dissect what they've done well, and then I'll maybe look at the ones that don't do so well, and you can normally pretty quickly find a pattern of what kind of things they want to see on the sub. The other thing too is being a bit personal and like being like not positioning yourself as a studio. Reddit's like a social media account for an individual, not a studio. So yeah, I always see when people post as a studio, it never does as well as like just being a guy who makes games. Like Reddit loves helping out the little guy, and I think that's kind of goes with like most of the internet. We kind of like they always rally behind indie devs, and I definitely think Gnomes benefited from being, a bit of a hyper indie, so to speak, or a very small studio, or we're very anti-corporate, I suppose, is probably one way to put it.
Sure, and then obviously the fact that it's a custom engine helps with that aspect too, right? That's
absolutely
a card you would play in social posts for sure.
Every advantage that you can think of for your game, whether it be theme, whether it be something quirky about your development process, just try out a bunch of different things, and the things that work, keep doing it is the way I put it. I think I see a lot of people, they'll try post on whatever platform. Like Reddit wasn't the only platform I tried. I tried Twitter and I tried TikTok, and I tried other platforms, but no one cared on those platforms. So rather than spending all my bandwidth on these platforms where no one cares, I just doubled down on Reddit, talking about how to get the most out of your marketing without spending any money. I think there was I think she's from Switzerland, the lady who did the marketing for Wandering Village. I was watching that episode of the podcast, and she said something that was one of the most, probably one of the best ways to put it. It's that you don't need, a flamethrower. You just need a spark if your fire's big enough, right? And everything will just sort of take off by itself. So many people are asking advice, like, how do we get a publisher? How do we, how do I get more upvotes on my Reddit posts? Or or have more views on my trailer. And the reality is like you've either got a feather or you've got a stone, and it's going to float or it's going to sink. And the only way to know whether you have one or the other is to put it out there and just put it in front of like find 100 people who you think will really care about this game and see what they think of it. Because you're not making a game for everyone. You're making a narrow, deep experience specifically for those people. The way I think about it is stop trying to think about what other people think is cool and make something that you think is cool. Stick to what you know. And that's how you make, for you personally, that's how you make your best game rather than trying to, create something artificial that is designed to sell. So I suppose I've seen in the comments on this podcast as well that, a lot of people have a problem with like a marketing first approach, but I think a lot of those people don't understand what marketing actually is. And what marketing actually is basically it's fulfilling a fantasy. That's what it comes down to. If you can fulfill a fantasy for a small group of people that no one else has filled yet, then you've got a product that people will want.
Right. And you want like a deep experience, because I think this is something that's also a good point, is that the people who play the most tower defense games, for example, are the hardcore tower defense fans. So whenever you make anything, you're always kind of making it for the hardcore fans because they are most likely to find and buy your game first.
So I guess the response to that is, if you're making a tower defense game, are you a hardcore tower defense fan? Because like so often you'll see someone that goes, oh, this genre is popular, I should make a game in this genre because this is a hot genre, but they've never played that genre. I mean, I'm not saying that you should make a competitor to World of Warcraft or something like that, but find the types of games that you really like and find the themes that you really like and figure out how you can put those two together to create something that's truly unique and, I guess, a extension of yourself rather than trying to create something that a corporation would make in a boardroom, right? We see how that's all turning out for a lot of the big studios at the moment.
Can you help me out with something? It's like, do you think Gnomes is a marketable game, or do you think it's just a very fun and deep game? Do you think like it sells well because people see it and then they instantly want to play it, or is it because they see a recommendation or they get a recommendation or they see somebody else play it and it looks cool?
That's a good question. I think that it definitely alienates a lot of people because of how simple it looks. Like that, at a first glance, a lot of people just aren't going to give it a chance. But it probably would have done better. Actually, good question. Do you think Gnomes would have done better if we had the exact same mechanics and it was like a high fidelity 3D game? Like, do you think that would have been a good bet? Like, I don't know. Like, because the niche style, like we've like bundled with some other games that have a very similar art style, like Tiny Rogues and the Norp Apologue. And those are our two highest selling bundles, even though there's other games we're bundled with that, have, more sales or, they're a more well-known game, just because we knew there was an audience for like the negative space background and like, low fidelity pixel art. We knew that people wanted that. And I guess like, you see games like Dwarf Fortress and you see games like, what's another good example? Like Rift Wizard, for example. They're fulfilling a very niche fantasy, right? We thought, well, I love the idea of like the killer gnomes. Like, I don't know if you've seen like some of the art people do with like an angry gnome holding a kitchen knife, which is what I kind of copied myself. I've always found that quite funny. And there was also the Crawley the gnome memes getting around at the time when we first started with the idea. The first original piece of art I did was like a gnome holding an assault rifle, and I just could not stop laughing. I made a little clip, a little music clip, and sent it to Patrick. So what about this? And we just, from the second we saw it, we knew that we had captured the vibe. And if you have a moment like that, you kind of know if it makes you feel like that, it's probably going to make someone else feel like that. You just need to find those people, right?
I think in a weird way, the fantasy that you chose works surprisingly well. Like, it's one of those fantasies that you don't know you need fulfilled until you see it. It's like not one of those, I've always wanted to be an astronaut, or I've always wanted to be a doctor, or I've always wanted to be a superhero. It's like, wait a second. I can build an army of gnomes in like a massive garden and kill hordes of goblins. Ooh, like one of those fantasies.
This kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. How like you can only when you're a solo dev, you can really attune yourself to some very specific fantasy. But I guess that me and Patrick are on just like such in sync wavelengths that we both, whenever we'd give each other an idea, we really felt, that. We really felt like they were married together easily. It's not always like that when you're working in a team, I guess, but we were very lucky that we had similar tastes and found the same things funny, and also had like a similar tactical mind when it came to the type of games that we find fulfilling. Like we probably weren't ever going to make like a chalk or game where, like Power Wash Simulator is a cool game, but it's not really my style, right? Like,
sure,
I prefer a deep tactical game that punishes me for making mistakes. So that's, if I'm going to play a game tonight after we get off the podcast, it's probably going to be something like that, right?
I wonder, like, one thing that I find very inspiring about Gnomes also is that it looks so doable. I'm always like very, very inspired by games that look like anyone could make them, almost a little bit in a way, if you know what I mean. It's a little bit like, for example, Paddle is also a great example of this. When you look at that game, it's like anyone could have made that game, but if you're the one to make it, then you're still the one to make it, right?
Yeah, well, I guess
like, how do you find these kinds of games, and how do you design these kinds of games? I guess it's an interesting question.
Yeah, exactly right. I think there's a couple of components to it. First of all is like seeing someone make a really bang for buck game as another developer, you're like, respect, man, good job. Like that's cool. But also being the first person to deliver on that idea is like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Like everyone has that thought about Vampire Survivors, like, oh, why didn't I make Vampire Survivors? It's like such a simple idea. But dude's dude's probably sitting on a yacht right now, right? Like, not that that's the end goal. Like I'm pretty happy just to not have to go to a cubicle every day and, wake up when I want to and make games. Like that's, as long as I don't have to worry if I've got food in the fridge and my rent's paid, like I'm pretty happy, right? So I guess the main thing is, can I do it again? Can we do it again? The main thing is for me at the moment is not to let my eyes get too big scope-wise for whatever thing I work on next. Because the fastest way to kill your runway is just have an idea that's too big, and you'll be 6 or 12 months in and going, oh shit, what have I done? So often I meet people that are in a position where they put their game out there after working on it a year and no one wants to know about it. So it's like, do I keep pushing and finish this thing, or do I try and make something else? So I guess, like we were talking about earlier, is there an element of luck to making games? Well, yes. So have more smaller bets rather than making one big bet. Know the outcome. Have an idea of the outcome before you fully invest in it.
I guess what we also see, like Vampire Survivors is also like a really good example of this phenomenon that I tried to describe. I guess one interesting thing about all of these games that kind of look like anyone could have made them, I know it's not that simple, right? It's obviously there's a lot of skill and so on that goes into making a good version of that idea. But I guess all of these games are rather gameplay focused. Like, for example, Vampire Survivors is also quite gameplay focused, right? Quite deep in its own way.
Yeah.
Lots of upgrade combinations and so on. It's interesting. I think it's a type of appeal that I haven't really thought about much. Yeah. It's because I feel like for some games you can kind of see the depth almost on the screenshots. And I think I can see it for Gnomes because maybe it reminds me of Dwarf Fortress a little bit, but I also see that there are a lot of different icons, lots of different terrain. And I'm like, if you have such a simple art style, they probably do have a lot of content. And I mean, you do have quite a lot of content. So,
well, yeah, that is definitely the trade-off of the art style, is that for us to create an item, if we know exactly what we want it to do, we can have an item in the game ready to test out in 30 minutes, 60 minutes, everything done. And then it's in our next run, which we've spent 2 hours playing, you know what I mean? So
that's awesome.
That's definitely the biggest benefit of having such a simple art style. I'm finding now, going through like the whole, modeling and then rigging process, that like, oh geez, this is like taking me a whole week to get one character fully animated and rigged in the game, and now it's still not behaving how I want it to behave, and I guess that's
a sign that maybe you need to pick a different style.
Yeah, right. Or maybe like when you're working in 3D, rather than creating a whole world, create like one room, like a clover pit, for example. It's
sure.
Yeah, like create like a small contained space where everything still feels good, and rather than having a UI, they've just got a bunch of buttons in a room which you press. So I think that's a really good bang for buck game that, once again, it's like one of those ones you're like, why didn't I think of that kind of thing? So
true.
I guess with Thronefall, did you use something called Pro Builder or something like that to make a lot of your assets, or how did you go about that?
So the assets are all made in Blender, like the houses and towers and so on. And the terrain is built with a custom Unity tool that we created that it's essentially a spline tool. So you don't necessarily need ours. You can just get some random spline tool from the asset store and use that. That will do the job just as well. So essentially we designed the entire maps are all just splines. So essentially paths that a mesh is procedurally generated around.
Okay. Yeah, because the obviously the thing that, despite being 3D, Thronefall is a very bang for buck art style. And your other one is it Superflight?
Superflight is a Grizzly Games game, but I personally did not work on Superflight. So my university friends made Superflight before I joined the team, and then I joined the team. The team configuration changed a little bit, and then I was part of making Islanders. So Superflight is by the same studio, but I was not involved in making Superflight.
The point I was about to make for Superflight, though, is that you basically have one character. So they have one character asset, which is like used in every scene, and then the map's procedurally generated, and it's like a very smart use of different color palettes and stuff like that. So once again, like a bang for buck 3D game. So I guess unless you're, I mean, in my case at the moment, like I'm looking at a lot of PSX style art and sort of just using that for my current experiment. Whether it becomes a game or not, we'll see. But I'm finding the environment stuff really fun and easy to do. It's almost like playing The Sims or something like that, just like building scenes because, I don't need to make a tree when there's already someone who's an expert at this art style that's made a great tree. I'm letting lighting do a lot of the work to try and like blend everything together and using some post-processing and stuff. But that's the stuff I find really fun is like creating vibes. Yeah, I think you are right. If it's taken me a whole week to get a character in, I guess part of it is learning the process. But if I can keep it repeatable and get quicker every time, it will make sense.
I think, for example, there's one art style, for example, that I always wanted to try, which is like a more stop motion-y 3D art style that almost looks like a stop motion animation a little bit. And and if I don't know if you probably know Megabonk.
I was just about to say how Megabonk did it. Yes, how they must do 12 FPS or something like that. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Actually, in the case of Megabonk, I think it's for the purpose of performance optimization, because if you have so many enemies and they're all skinned meshes, then it's gonna cost quite a bit of performance. I think in this specific case, it was like
they're still meshes. It's not like they've done what Halls of Torment did or something like that. It's like still meshes there. they're just like rendering the animations at 12 frames or something like that, right?
Right, but they don't have bones anymore. The animations in Megabonk are baked, so that saves a crap load of performance because it's basically just
smart
lookup tables. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty smart. So it's like a 3D sprite sheet, basically. That's
exactly.
Interesting. Oh,
exactly.
wow, that's very smart. Cool.
I think more developers will do this in the future. Honestly, I think it's a cool style. B, it's easier to make. C, it's more performance efficient. I think.
Yeah. Wow.
I think this is
well, thanks for bringing that up. I had no idea, but because I saw in the performance recommendations it said we'll run on a toaster if you ask it nicely, which I thought was pretty funny. So that's kind of like the goal for a lot of. There's kind of two devs. There's like performance, don't worry about it, and then there's devs that just want to play Factorio with their code and make everything perfect. So sounds like this guy's that type of dev. I also heard that he might be someone that's actually very well known and was making the game under an alias.
Cannot deny or confirm. I know nothing.
There's a YouTube rabbit hole for everyone watching.
Yeah, I mean, I just find Gnomes to be a very interesting case study in terms of also good scope and everything. I just like the whole package also from a player perspective and also from a developer perspective. I can very well imagine making something like this at some point, maybe like making a roguelike strategy game with like a very minimalist, simple pixel art look, and it's not about the graphics, it's just going 100% into the depth and into the gameplay. I think it's cool to see that can still work. I guess maybe one interesting question would be, do you have any regrets about design decisions you made for Gnomes? And if so, which ones?
It's kind of like there is a few, but at the same time, we kind of will never know. There's a few things that Patrick and I kind of don't agree on. At the end of the day, what gets pushed up onto Steam is kind of is Patrick's call because he's the one with the Git repo. You know what I mean? So I guess one example is later after the fact, we ended up adding a restart day button. I kind of didn't want to do it at all because I was happy to just like let people, that's the end of your run. You can't try anymore. When we did implement it, I used Thronefall as an example of how to do it because I thought, you don't want to you want to give them the chance to respend their money and everything like that if they invested poorly. But I think that we've seen like a bit of a dip in our review score since doing it. And I don't think people realize what it is, but getting booted from the run and having to start again is actually the best experience, in my opinion. So that's one example. Another thing, look.
So can you explain that in a bit more detail? So, I mean, technically, the way it works now is you never really get booted from the experience because you can always retry, right? And
yes,
one thing that this does is it takes away the risk reward a little bit because you can just try to go for the economic option, and if it doesn't work out, then you do something, then you add some defenses, for example, right?
Well, there's two examples. So first of all, people can get stuck in a no-win situation, which is not something that I really like, and they can keep playing over and over and not be able to beat the day. And the other thing is that I think when people get stuck restarting over and over and over again, the game loses a little bit of its magic. Like as much as the way I think of players is that players don't always know what they want, but they know exactly how they feel, but they don't know why. And this is one of those situations where it's like they don't feel quite as good as if they just started again because they would have forgotten about their last run by the time they're 2 minutes into their new run because now they're attached to this new run. Whereas letting them repeat the same run or the same day of the run where they're stuck over and over and over again just makes them frustrated. I think if I could have my time again, I would have probably put my foot down and said we shouldn't do this. But now that it's in the game, it's something that you can't really take out because there'll be people that get upset about it. I've seen examples of people making much bigger blunders than this, like changing how a whole system works after their game's fully released. And, it's fundamentally changed the game. And the dev goes, nah, this is better. But the players hate it. And, they go from positive to mixed pretty quickly. But it's also one of those things where it's like, the dev can't backtrack either. Like, so after you've launched your game and you make choices like that, it can be you've got to think very carefully if you're going to change something fundamental about the game. The other big thing that I am not, we released the game in English only, and really the reality is we were just completely broke, and we could not have waited another month. But I feel like if we released the game in Chinese, Japanese, Korean, German, we probably would have had a much more exponential start, just because our audience would have been twice as big, if not bigger. But that's just something like we'll just never know, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But as far as like game design decisions go, for the most part, I'm pretty proud of like what we've come up with together. And if anything, I kind of feel like we were talking about earlier with the simple constraints, a lot of these decisions just came so naturally. Because it was rather than having, so many choices of things we could do, there was always just like a very obvious, we use the term ooga booga, like caveman mode solution, what's the most ooga booga solution to this problem? Rather than creating a whole system for it, it's like, well, maybe this button just needs to work differently or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go with the ooga booga solution first. I like it.
Yeah, that's right. The lowest investment solution and see if it's good enough, Done is better than perfect.
That's right. But just saying do the ooga booga solution in a weird way explains all of that without any fancy words, and you know exactly what it means.
There you go.
Can you, by the way, if you restart a day, can you re-roll the shop and get different items, or how does that work?
That's a great question. That's there's a bunch of nuances like that only Patrick can answer, I think. Actually, no, okay. I'm sure there's some players in our Discord that could answer that question, but this change has happened after the bulk of my QA has happened. So I actually can't answer that question. I can tell you though that we did a daily run feature, which is one of the things I'm really happy we did. I kind of almost vetoed it because it was just, one extra thing to get in before launch. But it's been one of the best retention tools for us. Is like there's, we get at least 300 odd players a day coming back to the game, which is pretty great. The main thing about it though is that every run is the same. So the shop seed and everything's identical. Whereas in the real game, it's pretty much impossible to get the same seed twice. So everyone, if you re-roll the same shop at the same time, you'll get like everything in the same order.
Okay. Yeah. I see.
And the only thing that changes that is like what you purchase. So yeah, and like everyone gets the same tiles, the same chunks and everything like that.
So there's a seed that just keeps going. I see.
Yeah.
Is there a high score for the?
Yeah. So the high score is basically who survives the most days in endless mode, and sometimes it's just crazy. What day people get to. And it's been a long time since I've managed to get into the high scores. Let me just tell you that, because some of these guys are just fanatics. They're just crazy. Some of them just don't stop until their computer stops working because they're so good. There's sort of like a critical mass point where it's kind of just impossible. Like you literally can't win because you run out of space to plant crops and everything like that, or you just can't deal enough damage. But I guess that's just one of those things. If we wanted to do endless mode, it had to get a bit wacky at some point. It's the same with procedural generation too. If you're gonna have a procedurally generated environment, you're never gonna have a perfect environment, right? There's always going to be something 1 in 100 times that just isn't right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, I got to try the daily mode. That sounds fun indeed. Is it like a top 10 score, or why do you say you haven't gotten into it for a while?
The top 10, I mean, you can scroll back. We've even got like a half-baked website for it as well, because people wanted to be able to navigate it a bit easier. But to get into the top 10 is a pretty big task, especially some runs, like they're so hard that people barely anyone ever even finishes just the regular 16 days. So yeah, I think the hard part with the daily run was creating combinations that don't cancel each other out. And Patrick put a lot of work into like all the conditions. Like, for example, if you get a gnome, you always have to have something that gives you population. So like a house or like one of the population relics, or if you get like if you get no economy items, you have to get something that like gives you a way to generate money, or else it's quite a lot of work went into that, making bad combinations impossible.
I see. So all of the daily runs are also probably generated from a seed. So maybe the seed is generated from the current date or something like this.
Yeah, that's right. So it's basically set to be random forever. So when me and Patrick, when our bones have turned to dust, if you get online and play Gnomes, you'll still be able to get a random seed that's never happened before.
Nice, cool. And do you have any cheat prevention, or are there cheaters on the leaderboards?
Oh, good question. I'm sure someone's cheated on the leaderboard somehow. We have cheat mode. If you click on the gnome's eye a bunch of times, it turns on cheat mode. I think it's its left eye. So if you but it tags it as cheat mode so that you can't like brag by getting a crazy score. Look, some of this stuff's a little bit janky, but that kind of comes with the territory of this type of game. I found out the other day that the average person on Steam is like 35 years old or something like that. So they're used to this kind of thing, and like it's almost nostalgic having a little bit of this type of jank.
35, wow, that's quite old. So all of the young players are on mobile and on Fortnite and Roblox.
Oh well, maybe. I think
that's crazy.
You'd probably know better. Weren't you working on a mobile game at one point recently?
Yeah, I'm making a puzzle game, but it's like, I guess super young people are also probably not the target audience for that. I guess the reason why it's gonna be a free game is because I really don't know who is gonna be the target audience for it, except for hardcore puzzle fans, which there aren't a lot of.
There's something I have to ask you that I just thought of since we're talking about mobile. Do you know what I'm going to ask you? Kingshot.
Ah, yeah. Kingshot,
have you? What's the deal with that? Like, did they not just straight up rip your assets, or like what's happened there? Do you know anything about it, or you just put it in the back of your mind?
Yeah, no. We had some legal confrontation also with them about that. The problem is it's a little bit like whack-a-mole, right? So they upload these crappy ads, and then when they tell them to stop or to put it down, then they just create another one the next day, different one. And then also, if we send them a letter with a lawyer and to tell them that they should please stop using our original soundtrack that they ripped out of our trailer or whatever, then the next day they'll just have a new trailer where they recreated the entire soundtrack but like changed a couple of notes. I'm like, frick me with the time you could have made your own soundtrack. What the hell are you doing? But that's how it works. So
yeah. I first saw that,
it's very hard.
But it must be really frustrating to deal with that. But at the same time, like what do you do? It's like you're better off just just putting your head down and making something else faster than they can keep up, right?
Yeah,
luckily, I think most of the audience is like pretty vocal. Sorry, I was just talking over you. I said, luckily the audience is pretty vocal. I think like there's a lot of negative reviews of people saying this is just Thronefall ripoff, and at least like the audience is out there backing you guys. So. But yeah, so I'm sorry to see that's happened to you, but I'm sure you're not the first person, and I'm sure you're not going to be the last either.
It's not really a problem for us because Thronefall is on mobile now. You can play Thronefall on mobile, but they're not really eating into our market share or whatever. They're just doing their own thing. And they used our assets in the beginning. Now I think they don't use our assets anymore. So now they're just a very close copycat, visually speaking. But then when you actually see the gameplay, you quickly realize that the gameplay also is quite different. It's very mobile-y, you have like lots of in-app purchases and like all of the typical mobile stuff. So it's very, very different in that aspect also.
Yeah, a lot of people have said to us that we should put Gnomes on mobile, and I've said, first of all, we can't because of our custom engine, one of the quirks of it. Now, a lot of the things have come to bite us in the ass, like we can't do mobile or console. Basically, anything that's C based, we just can't touch it unless we want to spend another year on it. I think a lot of people have the idea that mobile gaming does a lot better than it really does. Like the monetization model for mobile gaming, there's not going to be a lot of people spending $5 on a game on mobile, right? It's the advertising that earns that's how you monetize, right?
It's quite surprising. I mean, yes and no. There's developers telling stories about both. Developers telling story about their completely flopped mobile ventures, and they never want to do it again, and then they maybe do it again, and then suddenly it works. It's like hard to generalize. I think mobile is I think mobile for me personally is more difficult to understand than Steam.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a good understanding of Steam. I feel like mobile, because I don't know it as well, because I don't understand it as well, it's more of a black box. It's more like a random game to me personally.
Yeah, right.
But I'm not sure if it's more random in general, or if that or if it just feels more random because I don't know it as well.
I think it's the same thing for me. It's that I don't play mobile games at all, and I looked at my Steam purchases history and how much I've spent on Steam or something like that, and I realized I could have bought a boat. So it turns out this is my my hobby. But because of that, I know Steam very well, and I've got Chris Zukowski on speed dial as well, and I'm subscribed to the blog. So I think it's just for someone who doesn't have a marketing budget and is a fan of that type of game, it makes sense to only make games for Steam. And maybe one day, if I make something that's cool enough, I can get a third party involved to do a port for me or something like that. But when I cross that bridge, we'll talk about it.
So you do play a crap load of games on Steam, right? Or where does is it like a ritual? Do you buy like a new game every week, or like what's your habits there?
So I do have a look at the demos like a few times a week and just see what's coming up, and I try to like almost like your Steam guess a game, try and figure out what's going to be a hit and what isn't. And if something looks pretty cool, I'll give it a bit of a go. And luckily, most demos only have like an hour or two of content, so it kind of caps me from playing for too long. But when I play a game, I will play a game for like 48 hours without sleeping, just nonstop. Like I'll find something, and if it really grabs me, I'll just completely immerse myself in it until I can just play it no longer. And I guess that's kind of like translates to my game development method as well, which is that I'll just like go and go and go and go until like one day I just can't even get off the couch, and I'll sit down and I'll watch a whole series of a show or whatever, like, until I just crash, I'm very like, I have no rigor. I'm just like, some people work like cogs and others work like cannonballs, and I work like a cannonball. Like I'm just like all energy until
you're going.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
There's no stopping you. Okay, I see.
What about you? Are you similar, or are you more like methodical?
I think I'm a marathon runner, so I try to not burn myself out. I do a little bit every day, and as long as I'm making some progress every day, I'm satisfied.
As I've started making games by myself, I'm realizing that it's more, you've got to be like that if you're solo. When you're part of a team, especially when it comes to marketing as well, like being a cannonball is kind of a good thing. Or like, if you've got to make a huge art piece or you've got to make an entire song or whatever, definitely helps. And then I take time off and reflect, like while I'm doing whatever I'm doing that's not games, I'm thinking or, meditating on ideas that I have. And then when I cannonball myself again, I've basically built up what I want to do as like, my gunpowder for when I go again, right? But yeah, as I've started working more solo, it just seems like that's not going to work for me in the long run. Like I've got to be, putting in 6 hours a day instead of 18 hours one day and none the next, Yeah.
Also, do you have a family, or how's your life situation like?
Funny you asked that. Not yet, but pretty soon. Pretty soon. So I've got
Nice.
to make some smart decisions, I think, going forward, and I've got to probably be a little bit more, have a bit more rigor about my workflow, and
Yeah.
I don't. One day my life's just going to change completely very soon, so we'll see how it all fits into itself. I guess if you watch Thomas Brush or someone like that, he manages to run YouTube and make games and have 3 kids or something at the same time. So we know it can be done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess exciting, terrifying, everything.
Yeah, I guess it has to change your approach a bit, right?
Yeah, I
Like
mean, when you're a young man, you can play it like the young man's game, but one day you've got to take stock and look at how you're doing things, right?
What's the reason that you're going solo now? Is does Patrick have different plans, or?
It's that Patrick, I think, is just a little bit burnt out at the moment. We're definitely we have to get back together to do more Gnomes content. He's just traveling around with his laptop at the moment and just enjoying himself. And
fair enough.
Yeah. He's it's kind of we've worked on a few little prototypes and stuff together, but we haven't had that moment we did for Gnomes where it was like we both knew this is exactly the game we wanted to make. And there's a very good chance we're going to make another game together. But I think we both kind of want to see more of the whole picture. I want to learn a bit more about actually building the game myself, so that, maybe one day Patrick won't be in the picture. I can do it myself. And I guess he kind of wants to understand a bit more about the marketing and the art direction stuff. And while we still, correspond and share ideas and stuff like that. It's the same with the Sea of Survivors guys as well. I'm basically just their free marketing consultant now going forward. They've got other prototypes they've made without me. And, at the same time, if I ever need technical advice, I just ask them and they'll give me a corporate solution to whatever spaghetti code I'm making. Right. Yeah. I think it definitely makes sense to not tie yourself down in the same team with the same people all the time. It's almost like you come together to create something, and once you've created that thing, you can move on and, find other people to work with, or just use that energy yourself. I do like the idea of having those people in my corner, so that maybe one day in a year or 2 or 5, we can see who's still making games and see if we've got an idea that all lines up.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea to learn how to make a full game on your own, because then you hold all of the cards and you can entirely freely choose who you want to work with and who you don't. You don't depend on anyone.
Yeah.
If for some reason you don't like working with somebody, or you don't like working with somebody anymore, then it's just okay. I can. That's a good situation to be in general. Yeah, I agree.
I agree. I think the people that are in the best position to earn a living from Steam are the generalists who they're developers, artists. I don't think you have to be a musician. That's kind of a bit of a cherry on top. But for me, I very much enjoy creating the music and the sound for my games. So to be the triple threat would be a bit of a dream come true for me. And I feel every day I'm getting a few steps closer to that. With the way things are going, one day we won't even be programming games. We'll just be transmitting our ideas through our Neuralink anyway. So, I hope that's still a little while away yet. But
the AI will guess what you want to play and code the game for you overnight. Or
that's what it'll be.
Neurally generated anyway.
Yeah, we won't even be making games. It'll just be making games for everyone will just have their own personal game, won't they? That's whatever they desire at that time.
Yeah. Have you seen these videos of these AI generated games that almost feel like dream worlds? They're basically like video generators, real-time video generators, but they respond to your button inputs.
No, I've not seen this.
Like
Wow.
for example, the AI Minecraft,
Wow,
where
okay.
have you not seen that? They
No,
trained
I've not seen it.
they trained a neural net on a bunch of Minecraft footage in combination, like with the button presses that created the imagery. So they have an AI version of Minecraft where you can look around and mine blocks and so on, but it's like a weird dreamland, because when you look away and then you look back, then suddenly there's something different there, right? Because
Oh, wow, okay.
it's not persistent, it's all just AI generated, right?
Yeah, right. So from what I understand, it's like talking to a genius goldfish is kind of like the
Yeah, that's
the
what it's like at
consensus.
the moment.
I have used it for like as a bit of a tutor from time to time when I'm programming, and I'll be like, "Why isn't my code working?" It's like, "Oh, you just forgot your parentheses, bro." And it's like just these, these
Yep.
little things that for someone like me who hasn't got a lot of experience can
Yeah.
just it just knows what's wrong with it after a glance. Or if I don't know what something is in Godot, I'll go, "What is this thing?" Or what's
Yep.
what's Quaternion Euler mean, or whatever.
Yep.
And these little things, it all it explains it like I'm five, which is exactly what I've always needed. So
It's perfect for those kind of questions. Yeah.
yeah. So I guess where people are going to get tripped up though is just putting in a prompt for an entire project and then wondering why it's dog water. So yeah, I think that being able to do that is a very, very, very long way away. And I'd say that your Minecraft video you're speaking about is probably someone who's very much a specialist has managed to figure that out. And surely it isn't just straight out of the box.
Yes, I think it was some kind of research project. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to predict timelines, but I'm sure it's gonna be a mixture of later than we expect and sooner than we expect at the same time, if that makes sense. Like when it comes, it will probably it'll be like it will feel unexpected.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's gonna be tomorrow. No.
I still am yet to find any like art or music that doesn't have a certain stank about it. Even the really, really good stuff that everyone's ranting and raving about, it's always just got like a unoriginal feel to it. So I'm not really too concerned about like game artists being replaced. But I do think that it won't be too long until like it becomes standard practice to have like Copilot at the very least. In fact, I think that probably already is the standard practice now. I know it is for a lot of corporations and such. Yeah.
I think that is pretty much the standard now. And yeah, agreed for AI music. You can hear it when you're paying attention, right? For example, sometimes when I listen to random playlists on YouTube, I just listen to whatever comes up in autoplay, and then oftentimes I find myself being like, wait a second, am I listening to AI music?
Yeah, right. Oh, that's
like,
nothing worse.
Yeah.
When you're thinking part of for me, part of it is like the connection with the artist that I suppose makes me feel something. Like maybe it's just a placebo, because a lot of these AI artists, like they're marketing them as a real person too, aren't they? So, well, I guess maybe one day it'll be good enough. It does for me. For me, there is a huge opportunity here though for the art, because as what is now considered normal becomes more and more just easy to create, because that's what this thing's trained on. For really wacky, weird games like Megabonk that are just doing super experimental, not even that experimental, but just strange things that no one's thought of yet. I feel like the audience for that is really responsive. Whenever something just completely strange comes out, but still, within the scope of like artistic, for lack of a better word. Yeah, I think there's games that are winning now that 5 or 10 years ago would have just been, people wouldn't have given them a second look because they're just too strange. So that's the silver lining of all of this, I think.
The average Steam player is 35 years old, though. Are you sure, man?
Don't quote me, but this is something that like 30 to 35, I think is the bracket.
Interesting. I wonder if there's like a curve, if like the average has gotten older and older, probably, right?
Well, I'm 33 now, so and I feel like I'm the average Steam player. Maybe it's just because, that's all my friends are the same age, but,
true.
yeah. And that's why I think games that are of a that's why the nostalgia sells. Was it Gavin was saying that's like his whole thing is like just tries to dial into something that makes you feel like you're a child again, or takes you back to 1999.
Does Gnomes play into the nostalgia a bit as well? Probably, right?
Absolutely, like the art style. I think what it is like you want to have like a rose colored glasses tint over your game, especially when you're batting in our league. We're not competing with like the Hell Divers and those huge types of games. Like we're trying to find 100,000 or 500,000 people that in the whole world that will think whatever we're making is really cool and be happy to give us $10, right? Rather than trying to compete for. We don't need a whole slice of the pie. We just need the crumbs.
The crumbs are quite big.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a big freaking cake. It's a massive crumbs.
Massive cake, yeah. And we're just tiny little mouses, so we don't need big crumbs at all. Yeah.
One thing with making games solo and in a team is I find myself. So it's a bit of the grass is always greener on the other side kind of situation. Whenever I make games in a team, I get cravings to make a game solo, and whenever I make games solo, I get a craving to go back to working in a team. We'll see how that plays out for you.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way to put where Patrick and I are both at the moment is, we spent a year, 7 days a week almost working together, and we both like I think we've kind of exhausted all of our shared ideas, and now the ideas that are left are just a bit different. So it's for us to find a middle ground again. Maybe we need to like go and spend some time in the other paddock and until all that green grass is eaten up. And I also think that same metaphor applies to game engines. Like just before I got on the call with you, I was like getting so frustrated with the pathing stuff I was talking about earlier that I was almost going to download Unreal Engine and have a look at see what it's all about. But after talking to you, I'm thinking, oh, what am I doing? Like it's just an excuse to procrastinate, isn't it? Right? Like, I guess I still kind of am like shopping for an idea at this point. Whether the idea I've put the most effort into is the one I go with or not, we'll see. But sometimes you just got to remind yourself that the game engine isn't going to make the game, right? Or, whatever. There is no secret tool to any of this. It's just the only thing that's going to really make this thing happen is some blood, sweat, and tears at the end of the day.
Do you have to suffer for your art?
I think
Do you think so?
I think so. Like in some, like it's hard work. Like, of course, like, it's still a job. There's days where I think like, oh, geez, I don't really want to be doing this. But then like other days I'll just wake up and it'll be 11 o'clock in the morning and I haven't had a coffee or anything. And I'm like, oh, geez, well, like I wish the day was longer because I'm having such a good time doing this. It's almost euphoric. It's the same feeling you get playing a game. It just depends on what problem you're trying to solve or like, what part of it you're working on. Or how passionate, how motivated you are by the idea. So like you said, seeing a small amount of progress every day is something that I think I need to become more used to, is rather than trying to like get I'll spend like 18 hours straight working on something until I get it how I want it. Whereas I should be happy to just like break it down into 4 parts, and it might even be more efficient to do it that way because I'll have a more efficient 6-hour day instead of, I lack the patience, I suppose, is one problem that I've got to kind of develop. That I think patience is a skill almost.
Probably is. I think the problem I have is with working on game dev for more than 6 hours is that my productivity definitely dwindles drastically after like the 6-hour mark. I can work with a very high level of focus, I would say, for about 6 hours, and after that it's very, very steeply downhill.
I think the hard part is like telling yourself when to stop. Like, no, you're not gonna do anything good from this point, or your quality of work is only going to suffer. As much as you want to keep going, you kind of just need to write it off and go and spend time with your family and, go outside and touch some grass. That's one big one for me. That's a reminder for myself, actually. go outside and touch some grass, and just come back and try again with a fresh night's sleep and a full belly the next morning, right?
Sure. I mean, surely Godot has decent built-in navigation system, right? There's probably some Navmesh solution in Godot already, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There is definitely Navmesh solutions. Just I've never used it before, so I'm just wrestling with. I made the mistake of building my map first, and now I'm trying to get my nav meshes and stuff to work with it. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've probably got to go. I'm doing everything I can to not have to rebuild the map again. So there's just lost. What is it? Lost profit fallacy or whatever it is. Sunk profit fallacy.
Sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah. There's a few times where it's like that, and I built a whole FPS system, and I was like, oh, I don't need a state machine, and now I'm like, oh damn, I need a state machine. I didn't want to learn what a state machine was, and here I am. So, yeah. So there's all these kinds of things where, like at the moment, my goal is to like get something that looks good enough to make a Steam trailer out of, and that doesn't necessarily mean that everything needs to work. It just needs to look like it works, and it needs to have like those exciting moments.
You're going the trailer first approach.
Yeah. I think that's the way to do it. Is like, have something that shows your idea and see what people think of your idea. And based on what people think of your idea, it can be either a $5 game or a $20 game, right? But I think you call it the balloon approach, where you like your scope just gets bigger depending on how in demand your idea is, or like how much runway you have to make it. I'm in the position where
the balloon was from Thomas Brush, I think. But
was it? Okay,
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, I mix you guys up. You guys look too similar, so I'll mix you up.
Maybe.
I guess that's the goal for me at the moment, is try and get something that I can present. I guess the industry term is vertical slice. And maybe that means that the game's not built the most efficiently it can be, but you circle back around and make it better once people are interested in it, I suppose. That's how I guess I see the marketing first approach is, when this is your job, you can't afford to from day one go, okay, I'm going to make a game that's going to take 3 years, or a game that's going to take 2 years. You need to have like a scope A, scope B, scope C kind of situation where it's almost like how they have gated Kickstarters, only you're just doing that internally based on audience engagement is how I'd put it.
You're testing the waters, basically. I guess one of the advantages you seem to have is that because you play a lot of games, you seem to have a decent feel for what works, right? You play a lot of demos and so on. And you said earlier that when you played Gnomes for the first time, when you had like the first prototype for Gnomes, you instantly knew that there was something there.
Yeah, and we did some like closed playtesting where I'd like get in a Discord call with one of my friends and be like, hey man, let me watch you play this. And I wouldn't tell them anything about it. And I'd send them a zip file, and I just have a little chat to them, not about the game at all. I would observe like how they played the game. And that was a lot to do with like how I developed UX, is I look at what people assume things do. And I maybe will just ask them questions like, what was your thinking when you did that? There's no wrong answers. Just I'm trying to make the game better. When I know that the game's good is when 2 or 3 hours later, they're sending me screenshots after the call's way over because they're still playing it. That's kind of when like, okay, there's something here. It's not just another little wacky prototype I've sent somebody. This is maybe got a bit of the secret sauce. So that's like the first kind of sign outside of like, wow, this just feels fun to play for myself and I can't put it down.
But that's like the thing that's not necessarily something you see or can test with a trailer.
Yes, I agree. I think but what I'm building at the moment, like I'm trying to make everything feel real juicy. Like you shoot something and the person flops and there's a bit of destructible environment stuff happening or whatever. And, you can make a very, very tight kind of ugly version of the loop. But there's certain moments that can probably be a little bit crafted for a trailer, rather than I suppose a lot of indie games, I think they're too far along by the time they get to Steam. But they've actually almost completed the game, and they've got a few weeks or a few months before they launch. Whereas, like, ideally, I think you want as long. You want a version of the trailer or a version of the Steam page as a complete package that looks like what the final thing is going to be, but you want to get that there as early as possible. Is basically the strategy that I'm talking about here.
But that's a bit of a different strategy than what you did for Gnomes then, because for Gnomes the gameplay was first. It was like very gameplay focused approach, and you were like, gameplay works, gameplay is nice, and then only a bit later you tested how it vibes with people, and that was also good. And here you're maybe trying to do it the other way around, trying to go for the appeal first, make a nice trailer, and then maybe worry a bit later, is the gameplay good? Or what's your way of thinking about those two things? Like you have the marketability that you can see from the outside, and you have the, I guess, the other type of marketability almost. It's
right.
It plays well, and it's like it creates word of mouth, but these are like separate in a way, right?
Yeah, I guess like with Gnomes, there was a lot of things that there was a lot of things that came later. Like our original trailer actually had like a few gameplay mechanics that were dropped before we put the demo out there. There was a little thing we dropped, like going back to what we were talking about before, like, do I regret any design decisions? That you used to have to manually rotate the gnomes. And when we took that out, a lot of people that were playtesting the game got upset. But I think it might have been the right choice, because it was just like a UX decision. Despite me being the UX guy, Patrick was the one that pulled rank and said, no, we're getting rid of the rotation, because it's just like, I'm sick of trying to teach people how to rotate the gnomes. So there's always going to be little things like that will change. We knew pretty early on, like the art style from Gnomes and the actual like idea of a tower defense where you can move the towers. That was like a core idea that was just really solid. And yeah, of course, like before I put a trailer on Steam, I'll definitely have something that people can playtest that's like, maybe it's like a crafted level rather than like using a bit more randomness, and maybe it won't have like the second loop, which is like, any kind of progression or whatever. Like it'll definitely be in a state where people can at least give me some feedback on, hey dude, you like you're cooking, what are you doing? This isn't a good game? Or I'll be able to gauge the response of the selected people that do get to try it before we put a Steam page up. At the same time, I do kind of, in a lot of ways, get similar feelings for like it's a good that you bring this up though, because you kind of have like, you have to decide whether, am I enjoying playing this, or am I proud that I've made this? And like those can be very similar feelings that I think a lot of people mix up. So I'm glad you mentioned this, because for me, it's like something as like the creative lead and like the UX guy and the main QA guy, being the person that's creating something, maybe I am going to get tripped up on this and end up finding myself in a position where I think something's cool because I made it, not because it is actually cool. Does that make sense?
I think it does. Do you think you have played enough shooter games to get the same feeling of knowing it's there when you see it, like similar to playing Gnomes and being like, that's the one? Do you think you have a feel for the genre like that?
Yeah, I was I used to play pretty high level Counter-Strike back in the day, funny enough, and I do really like a PSX shooter. There's actually one that I really love at the moment called Pigface, which I'm taking a fair bit of inspiration from. If you haven't seen that already, check it out. It's a cool game. I've got a lot of people around me that play these kinds of games as well that are not developers. These are just like, people I know who I can probably go, hey, check this out. And yeah, so I won't be going in completely blind. But I'm glad that you put it to me like that though, because part of wanting to talk to you today was having some of these like ideas that I have maybe challenged, because I can't afford to fall into a trap like that. where, maybe I think something's better than it is, pointing it out there. Oh, now I've got a game on Steam that no one wants and I've got to finish it. Like that's not the position that I want to be in. So, I guess like there's like a fine dance that you have to do between getting a trailer out on Steam, testing whether the broader audience is actually interested in it, and actually, playtesting the project playtesting it deeply enough before you actually, make that investment as well. Because minimum it's like $1,000 to get a game up on Steam by the time you paid for your capture art, plus all the time you spent investing in the project, right? The important thing for me is that when I'm playing it, it needs to feel good. And then when I give it to somebody else, it needs to be more than just oh, hey, yeah, that was cool, man. Thanks. See you later. Your friends are going to lie to you. They're bad playtesters. The only way you can tell if it's good is by what they do. Observe what they do, not what they say, is probably a good way to put it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is a very delicate dance. You kind of have to nail both aspects of it. You have to make sure it looks fun, and you have to make sure it is fun. It has to look fun, it has to be fun. And you kind of have to worry about both if you want to make it on Steam. I feel like you do need both. Yeah.
Who knows? I might turn around in a few weeks of cooking further and be like, what am I doing? Back to 2D. But for now, I'm just very much treating this as the worst thing that can happen is I learn a bunch of stuff. I get better at programming. I learn how to use Godot. I learn the 3D workflow, and maybe I can turn it into a commercial game at the end of it. We'll see what happens.
I hope it works out. Otherwise, I think Patrick and you could easily also make another tile-based strategy game.
Yeah,
I think you could easily just reuse the engine, make another tile-based strategy roguelike. I think that would also still absolutely work.
Yeah. Well, when he's back on the map, maybe we'll see how we go. But for now, I just don't want to be sitting on my hands. I want to be developing myself. We even talked about doing a bit of a quirky trad roguelike. I'm a bit of a trad roguelike nerd as well, but once again, that's just like something that's one of our many, many prototypes that are just floating around in the ether, really. Like he's even got, I could start, like you said in one of your videos before creating Phoneful, like you showed off a bunch of the different demos. Like there was that one with the flowers. It was like shooting flowers across the map, which was kind of cool. I thought like there's a bunch of little toys like that we've made that it's about just making the right bet so that we have the best chance out of our luck, right?
Makes sense. Did you also do the balancing for Gnomes, by the way? Or
it was a kind of a 2-person job for sure. Patrick's someone who's inclined to make things too hard, and I'm inclined to make things too easy. So it's one of those like balancing acts where, we try and meet in the middle. The other thing too is we both had very different strategic patterns. Like there was things that I would just find very easy and vice versa, and just other things that I'd find impossible or too frustrating. But the biggest thing was having like a steady flow of playtesters as we were making the game throughout. Between putting the Steam page up and putting the demo out, we would have had like 500 playtesters probably.
Wow. And that's wild.
Yeah, the best place to get playtesters is on Reddit. You just post on Reddit saying, hey, I'm giving out free keys to my game for anyone that wants to give me feedback. And maybe out of the 500, you'll get 100 responses from people you give keys to. But it's a really, really solid way to figure out what's working and what's not working. Because random people on the internet are the best playtesters because they don't care about your feelings.
True. I guess you can sort of test the appeal of your game at the same time, because the easier it is for you to find playtesters, that probably means your game is more appealing, right? Because people don't just want to play test anything. Like there are a lot of developers who struggle to find playtesters, and oftentimes it's just because their games don't look like something that would be fun to playtest for.
I think that's exactly right. If you can't find people to playtest your game, how are you going to get someone to pay for it at the end of the day? Like That's just, and I've been there too. Before Sea of Survivors, which was probably the first game that we went, okay, this has got a bit of something to it. We would have had. I've worked on probably half a dozen games before that of varying levels of seriousness, but and that's not including just like messing around in Unity either. Like this is like games where we've said, hey, we're going to make a game, or I'm working as part of a team on a game, and yeah, like you just know, like people can't wait to play your game, and it's a toy. You're not selling like a financial product. You don't need a call center here. You should be able to put a GIF of your game out there and have people go, how do I play this?
So you gave out 500 keys before the game released. So it was like beta keys. You gave out.
Steam's got a playtest feature. So you can put the playtest button on your Steam page and let people register. But to me, that wasn't very useful because I want direct feedback from people. I want people to tell me what they like and what they don't like, and even like create some super fans from these people, the people that are like there from the start because they love it so much, and they help guide development a bit. They tell us what they think each time we make a major change, and we have to either listen to them or ignore them, or just say trust us, we know better, kind of thing. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to kill some darlings and say just trust us, the bigger picture will make sense. But yeah, the thing with feedback from players is that players, they will often give suggestions, but the suggestions aren't always helpful. What you're looking for is the reason they're giving the suggestion. There might be a problem with the game that you can identify through what they're asking for. So like an example would be, I feel like I'm dying too fast. I wish that we had more health. Well, it might not be that the player needs more health. It might mean that they need to understand how to defend themselves better. So maybe it's like, as much as I hate tutorials, maybe it is a tutorialization issue or something like that. Or maybe, they're not actually investing in their economy early enough. Like one of the big issues we saw pretty early on was that people weren't spending all their money when they could, and not spending your money on day one is like it's an exponential, it's exponential as you you put a house down and throw in full on day one, then it's worth like 12 gold by the end of it or whatever, right? Or 13 gold.
Yeah, even more because you can spend that gold again on more houses.
Exactly right. It's about identifying what the problem is rather than doing what they suggest.
Listen to the problems, not to the solutions. That's exactly it.
Right? Yeah. Which is kind of the opposite of what you'd want from like an employee or something like that. If you have an employee, you don't want to hear problems, you want solutions, right?
Yeah, for playtesting, true, it's the other way around. You hear the problems, not the solutions. Yeah, I mean, you are the one making the game. You're responsible for the solutions. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But so I think this is a smart way to build a playtesting audience and superfans. So you gave out playtest keys. You can specifically generate playtest keys in the Steam backend?
And it's a different app. Our like live flow at the moment too, we don't use it so much anymore, but each time we have an update, we will put it out on Playtest first, and we'll ping all the people that are playtesters, and whoever's interested jumps on and gives us a bit of feedback. We only need like 10 or 20 people these days, because it's normally like, hey, what do you? If we're showing off like a new map or something like that, it normally gets a bit more exciting, and we might get like a couple of hundred people that get in, and we get feedback from 20, 30, 50 of them. And that's great for balance and stuff, especially. But what is especially valuable, that is like very like a commodity that you need to cherish, is first-time playtesters, people that are playing your game for the first time ever. And because once someone's played the game once, they can never be pure again. So they've learned. When you do have first-time playtesters, especially early days, I think it's really important to try and watch them rather than just waiting for them to like give you a feedback report. Like if you can, watch in a Discord call, or like if you can, go to an event and put a laptop in front of somebody and say, hey, do you want to play this? And, if you've made a really good game, you'll know because you can't kick them off it. But So sometimes there's just going to be things every time you iterate that you just miss as a developer. Like you get so used to the quirks of your game that you forget, you know, oh, that was actually a bug I have to fix, but I'm just so used to like pressing the buttons in this order that, you know, I jump over that obstacle that isn't meant to be there or whatever. So these little quirks about your game can only be solved by fresh eyes on the game.
And the first or 2 hours of the game are also so important that it doesn't matter that they're only testing the first 1 or 2 hours, because that's what you have to nail, right? After that, like once people have been there for like 2 hours, they're more forgiving if things are maybe a bit harder to understand after that, or if like you build up some patience because you have more sunk cost fallacy as a player also.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's exactly right. I would probably say like the thing that matters the most is like if you think about a Steam demo, like Chris Zakowski reckons that an hour of 1 hour of gameplay on a demo is absolutely huge, which of medium play time, that's huge, right? And that's like a gold standard. But the reality is that 15 minutes is probably still okay. But to get that 15 minutes, you need to make as many people stick around for 15 minutes as possible. So that's why I over tutorializing your game is one of the biggest demo killers, right? You need to let them get straight into the action. And if anything, like the tutorial is the game. Like it's just the first map is just a little bit easier and things are a little bit more obvious, right?
Yeah.
That first 15 minutes has got to be the most important. But yeah, the first couple of hours is like where you need most of the content to be. I think for Gnomes, our median play time's only 2 hours anyway, despite like most of the reviews saying
quite a lot.
Oh, that's for the full game though.
Yeah, I know. For the full game, I think for Islanders, the average playtime was something like 30 minutes for the full game. So
really? Oh,
2 hours is not too bad at all.
Well, I guess it probably doesn't really matter like how long people are playing the game for. It's like how long does the game live rent free in their head for? You know, like if you look at a game like Unpacking, which is a game from Brisbane here. Apparently, I've not played it, but apparently the whole game is like 2 to 4 hours long. But it's got 30,000 overwhelmingly positive reviews, and no one cares that it's only 2 to 4 hours long because it's just like such a great experience that people remember. So I think that's an important thing to think about. Is like maybe while yes, it's a pretty good catch-all that median playtime is really, really a good indication of the health of your game. It's not the end of the world to have a shorter game if it's intentional.
Yeah. And I think also the fact that demos are such an important part of the game's marketing journey at the moment makes it extra important that the first 15 minutes are good, right? That amplifies the whole thing. Because people are going to see your first 15 minutes in the demo as well and are going to make a judgment call if they want a wish list based on that. So first 15 minutes are like really, really important.
Which brings me to an important point that I think too many devs treat their demo like it's a playtest, but the reality is your demo is a launch. Like it should be treated like an early access nowadays, like we were saying earlier. So often, like someone will message me a few days after their demos come out and say, "Hey man, how can I get some players to play my demo?" And I kind of just go, pulling my hair out saying, you're meant to build the hype before you put the demo out, because this is and it's worse when someone's released a game and does the same thing. It's kind of it's good on them for getting there and putting a game out there, but it is a bit disappointing seeing them go to all this effort and just get the order of the playbook wrong, because I'm sure they probably have a great game. It's just that they just didn't know better. So if you're watching this, make sure you treat your demo like a launch.
I like that you used the word playbook there, because to me that's exactly how marketing feels like. It feels like a playbook. There's just a standard playbook that almost every indie dev nowadays has the same playbook with a couple of differences. But like the general keystones of the playbook, everybody does the same things. So it's not really black magic. You just go through the playbook in the correct order, and if you have the correct game, then it's gonna work.
Yeah, there's not really much more to say than that. Like, I mean, sure, having a publisher and having a budget's going to make some difference, but at the same time, it's also a big way to quickly tear up money if you have the wrong game.
Yeah, plus some luck, which I'm
Splash of luck.
acknowledging that is a factor. Yeah.
I agree. I do definitely think so, but more bets, more luck, right? Test your luck more often.
Yeah, cool. Anything else you think we should touch on? I think we went quite into depth there overall.
Yeah. Oh, look, I think it's like 35 degrees in this room Celsius, by the way, for those Americans out there. But yeah, I'm sweating my backside off. And yeah, this is just Australian summer. So I might actually go and sit in some air conditioning and enjoy myself for the rest of the evening. But Jonas, it's been I've wanted to meet you for a long time. So thank you so much for having me on. It's been great hearing some of your tales and some of your experiences, and I'm glad I got to share mine with you as well.